So today we're going to paint a paneled door. Panelized door. This is a 6-panel door. Before you paint any door, the first thing you want to do is prep it for paint. And what you need to do is make sure that it's clean, right? Especially if it's been used. You're really going to want to focus around the doorknob and around the hardware area, because that's where people's hands touch it the most, and it's the oils and dirt from hands that accumulates quickest on a door. So I use simple green. I just spray it on there, wipe it down, rinse it with a wet rag. That's generally good enough. This is a fiberglass door, so you don't want to sand it, but if it was a wood door, you could lightly sand and back off the dust if it was a pre-primed product. But clean, dry, and dull. Those are the 3 things you want before you paint anything. And take the time to take the hardware off. And that way you can get your brush strokes nice and even around the hardware, and you're not doing circles around it that stands out afterwards, which is the most common error that people make when they're painting a door, is they don't grain their brush strokes properly. And by graining, you want your brush strokes to go in the direction that the wood grain would be going in. If this was an actual piece of wood, this piece, it goes from top to bottom on the edge, long this way, narrow that way, the grain goes the long way every time. So this piece, the grain goes horizontally. This piece, the grain goes vertically. Horizontal, vertical, horizontal. All your brush strokes should match up with that, and you don't want any of them going over into the other area. And if you do, just simply wipe it off or straighten it out with your brush. So there's a nice clean line here of brush strokes going this way and that way. So when it comes time to choose the paint for painting your door, you want to choose something that has some sheen to it. The shinier the paint is, the more durable it's going to be, the harder it is. So semi-gloss is semi-gloss is what I shoot for. Design elements sometimes dictate that you can't use a semi-gloss or whatever, so you end up with satin or pearl, one of those, but it'll just be a lot easier to clean. It'll hold up to abuse a lot better. So this is an entry door from the outside, so I'm using an exterior paint on both sides. And I've chosen a soft gloss for the sheen of the product. Now this is a fiberglass door, so you want to go right to it with a 100% acrylic latex paint. So this is a fiberglass door. It comes ready to accept 100% acrylic latex paint, such as you use. It's basically pre-primed. If this was a wooden door and it was raw, bare wood, you'd need to prime it. I prefer an oil-based primer. And then it would have to be sanded and vacuumed off before you put your finished paint on, which you could go over it with either oil or latex at that point. And then the third typical option for a door is a metal door. And if they're not primed, they would need to be primed with oil, but they always come primed. The one thing you want to watch out for is if you sand it, be very gentle not to take the primer off and expose metal, because if you go to it with a latex after that, it will rust in those spots. So you can either use oil-based paint over it and avoid that altogether, or use a latex paint, but be careful with your sanding. And maybe not even sand at all, just make sure it's clean and dry, and you'll be good to go. So here we have a fiberglass door, so we're just gonna go right to it with our 100% latex, 100% acrylic latex paint. And I'm leaving this door on the hinges today. I'm not taking it off, which is a nice luxury. If you can take it off, that's great, because there's a 100% chance you will not get paint on the hinges if you take the door off. But if you're experienced, you can generally paint around the hinges without getting paint on them. But also it's winter time out, and this is a heated space, so this door needs to stay closed. I'm gonna be careful and not get any paint on the hinges. But I did take the knob and the deadbolt off. 1, so I don't get any paint on it, and 2, so my graining of my brush strokes can go continuous right through here and not leave a circular brush stroke area around the knob. Okay, so when you're painting a panelized door, the first parts of the door you want to paint are the panels. And you want to make sure you're not getting paint anywhere around the panels. So that's the first step in painting panelized door. So It really doesn't matter, you know, which one you start with, but I generally start from top and go to the bottom. So with your, I got a 2.5 inch angled sash brush here, and it's loaded up. Don't start with a fully loaded brush right in the corner. You overload the corner and it'll drip there. So put some paint on kind of out in the field in the middle there, and then go to your corners and work it in and work back towards the middle. And I'm going with the grain, that piece long that way, this piece, the grain would be going vertically. Like I said before, if you get any paint outside the lines, like right there, just wipe it off. And then it won't set up on you and cause an unsightly ridge in that area when you go back to paint that portion of the door. So you just got to watch out for the detail of this door is pretty, you know, pretty extensive. These edges will scrape paint off your brush and load up, and then there'll be a drip there. So you just gotta try and stay ahead of that brush in the direction that won't scrape paint off the brush and leave excess amount in a place where you don't want it. So when you are doing this style and you get to the area where the hardware is, just make an effort to keep your strokes going with the grain and don't offload a bunch of paint on this sharp edge that'll cause a drip. So you want to go kind of bring the paint up to the knob hole, going this direction on this side, and then when you get to do the top, just bring it down this way so you don't scrape paint off on the edge of that hardware hole. Just be conscious of the direction that you're dragging the paint towards, any right angle really, any area that could scrape paint off your brush and then have a drip. And then when you're done, all your brush strokes are going the same direction and you don't have that ugly. So once you get one panel done and all your overlaps cleaned up, just go on to the next one and get all 6 of these panels done. And then we're going to do the horizontals, or the short verticals in between them, the short horizontals, and then the long verticals. And that's the steps that you would, the proper process of painting a panelized door.